Hi everyone and welcome to Impact. We got a great new week ahead of us and we have many interesting topics and guests. But before we get to that, I always want to mention to you that we here at Impact love to hear from you. We want to hear your comments, your questions, your suggestions, or maybe you'd like to be a guest on Impact. You can contact us by email at impact@proctors.org, impact@proctors.org, or go to Facebook and like us on Facebook. Go to Impact Show on Facebook and click on like. Well, I'm Nick Barbie, your host. We got a great new week ahead of us, so stay tuned and we'll get on with the show. First segment is with Philip Morris, our host. He'll be interviewing Mark Fleischer. Mark is the producing artistic director of the Adirondack Theater Festival. And Mark is very good at what he does. And if you ever wondered about what does it take to become a theater director or what does a director do, you'll like this one. So let's watch.
Welcome to Impact. I'm Philip Morris, CEO of Proctors and the interviewer for today's art segment. Our guest today is Mark Fleischer, the producing artistic director at the Adirondack Theater Festival in beautiful, and I mean it, beautiful, downtown Glens Falls. Mark, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's a delight. And what the heck is a producing artistic director? Most people don't get what the words mean.
I think the history of ATF would actually help that because I took over for two beloved founders, Martha Banta and David Turner. And David was the producing director and Martha was the artistic director. And when they chose to, the theater reached 13 and it was time for them to move back towards New York and focus on their careers there, which are doing very well, the board decided that they would combine the two positions. Some board members joke that this way they only see me arguing with myself as opposed to David and Martha arguing with each other at board meetings. So basically I'm over the administrative side and the artistic side. So in the off season I'm working on marketing and fundraising as well as season planning. And then when it comes to the summer, I'm hiring the artistic staff. I direct one or two pieces a year. So it's really, I've found a niche, and it's what I did before at my other theater in Texas. That I have a sense of the marketing and that sort of side, but I also really love being in the rehearsal room.
So what brought you to Glens Falls?
The job. I had been in Chicago. I went to the graduate school, the theater school at DePaul, and I had spent a summer interning at the O'Neill Theater Center, the Playwrights Conference, because I developed a real love for new plays. And when I went back to Chicago, I was actually drawing a circle around Chicago, looking for how far outside the city I could get to start a summer theater that did new work that then fed back into the city. And then I opened Art Search, our illustrious trade want ads, through Theater Communications Group, and saw summer theater, upstate New York, committed to new works.
That's a circle around Chicago.
Yeah, well, so I threw my hat in the ring, and it was like the first thing I applied for out of grad school. Because partly I was freelancing in Chicago and hated it. I hate the freelance life. The idea of trying to chase down work more than, and I was teaching and I was, assisting and I was, but I'd run a theater before in Texas and I really liked that idea of being part of a community. And so when I came to Glens Falls, I did a first interview in New York City with a panel of, they had a great search process. They had artists and board members and community members all interview me. And then I came up for a visit of 3 finalists. And then Dave King, who was our board president, said, I want to talk to you about this opportunity. You want to come to Glens Falls? So I came, and I have found an incredible community. I have found one of the most beautiful places in the world. I mean, being 2 exits, south of the Adirondacks, and a small town. What I love about being there is I know my audience. I love standing in the lobby. I love talking with people about the shows. And so when I pick shows, and we're an organization that does, push the envelope for what you shouldn't expect the shows we do in Glens Falls, most people say. But I love that because I know them. A friend of mine says you should love an audience like your parents and hate them like your parents. And I think that's what we do. We push them, we pull them, we hug them. And I get to walk down the street and see people and see the impact immediately.
Our joke is, wouldn't it be a great job if there was no audience?
Oh, I don't feel that way at all. I don't feel that way at all. And it's funny because I deal with people, artists all the time that are like, oh, the audience. That's why they pay our paycheck. It's why we're there. And we want them involved. One of the things I brought from Chicago, I was working at Steppenwolf as an artistic associate. I've been hired by their associate artistic director to lead post-show discussions after every performance. Steppenwolf Theater Company does a post-show after every performance. And it was a great gig because I really got to know their audience, and they're an incredibly smart audience. And so when I came here, I started that. So after every performance, I walk down to the front of the stage. I sit there. Either an artist joins me or it's just me, and we talk about the play. That I kind of describe it as negotiating a shared meaning for that experience we've just had as a group.
Yeah, that's really very cool. So talk some more about that. Every show, that's a hard thing to pull off.
Yeah, but we also only run for 6 weeks, and so I'm there every night, and I'm in the lobby. It's when we see our audience. But I go down and I sit down there, and we kind of just talk about themes and ideas. I really have tried to make these conversations not about how do those actors learn all those lines, but I kind of believe, I do believe that theater is about a conversation. Mm-hmm. That a player has a question or a writer has a question. They start writing dialogue, which is conversation. We go into the rehearsal room. And we have conversations about what does this character want, what do they do, how do we best represent it physically on stage, and then we do the show, and then an audience sees it. And I think the only way to complete that conversation loop is let the audience actually talk back. And so we get out there and I say, what do you think the show was about? What do you think the playwright was trying to say? And we try to, so when it's a play that exists, we do it that way, and then we also do a lot of new work, and that's even more like, what do you think they're trying to say? How effective were they trying to say? And our writers actually sit on stage and listen to these comments. I do tell writers they don't have to defend anything they've written. They should just say thank you for the note. And it's, people laugh about those conversations with new plays because I'm very much, as soon as an audience member starts to say a prescriptive, like, you should write, I go, no. We're not here to tell them what to do. We're just telling them how we saw it. So it's been a fun sort of experience. And audience members still come up to me on the street, I was thinking about that play the other night, and and so to me I think we have to find more as what we do than turning the lights out on somebody for a couple hours.
Yeah. Relevance is what the work needs to
relevance
have.
One of the words I do with my board as we talk about shows is what's urgent about the show. What is urgent about the show today? And that doesn't mean it has to be about today. I know right. Many shows running in New York are set other times, and they reflect something. So, I stumbled into new work when I went to grad school. Before it was classics, and I did classics as, how do I describe this in my resume? Classics as culturally relevant pieces. Mm-hmm. So I would do a show like Ibsen's Ghosts, which is about syphilis and dogma, but I would do it and explore issues of HIV and what was happening in the late 80s, early 90s.
Last weekend I saw The Columnist, and I expected a great performance,
right.
And it certainly was. But I also was surprised at how touching a 1960s story that was about a personality that you knew but almost didn't like, even as a 57-year-old. I didn't like this guy.
Right.
But wow, it was fantastic. And you really do see time differently, the times differently, and it has a connection to where you are today. You go, wow, that's how a person who is gay, who was a columnist, who was who was blackmailed, handles a whole bunch of stuff, and it was really cool.
Well, and I think that's where our roots come, in theater. I used to teach theater history, and I used to love the Greeks. No one does Greeks anymore, and you can't, because a friend of mine said the minute we put a roof on the theater, the Greeks didn't make sense because they're so big. But that's a culture that took prisoners out of jail to go to see the plays, because the plays taught us our shared cultural values, our shared history. And I think the theater is one of the last places where we still do that. Cinema can do it to some extent, but there's something about that live element where we can look at a play like The Columnist about a previous era and see where are the connections. Or, like you said, walk a mile in those shoes. I'm interested in shows that don't necessarily, that whole reflect the mirror, the Shakespeare quote, that holds the mirror up to nature, but I want shows that show me someone I don't know.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because our audiences are hard to bring in of the diversity of the work that we're trying to present.
Right.
It's not an easy matter. So
Right.
we talk about a shared culture, but in fact, the statistics don't
Right.
bear out that effort. So talk about it. What are we missing? Why don't we have a more shared responsibility or
Right.
sense of participation than we would like?
That's a good question. I think in general, I think we're not just fighting an audience, but we're fighting a time period in which, you know, entertainment is on demand. You know, there was a survey done of what would you like to do on a night off, and the number one answer is get a good night's sleep. So I think, you know, I think the audiences that do come, you know, and I debate this often, you know, as we've been talking about different shows at ATF. You know, someone will read a book they've never heard of. They'll watch a TV show they've never seen. They'll watch a movie they've never seen. But the play, the musical, to walk in seems to be, and I don't know if that's price. I don't know if that's just the effort it takes. I mean, let's be honest. You got to book a ticket in advance. Got to find it. You know, you got to go out. So I don't know what it is about coming to the theater, but I think we have to provide that variety of experience, which I know you do so well at Proctors in terms of so many, because there's different people to find different things. You know, I love serious ideas on stage, but I also this week just was in New York and saw One Man, Two Governors, which is nothing but silly. Yeah, I mean, you know, and and that's fun. But you know, there is something in that show, right? It's exploring a music hall. And how does that, and 1963. And so there is an idea in there. I don't think we have to be so highbrow about what we do. I think at the end of the day, people want to be entertained, and it's defining what that entertainment is. I don't mind crying for my entertainment. I don't mind laughing for my entertainment.
Well, I was stunned when I saw Mountaintop, which I adored. And as you know, it was a play about Martin Luther King. And it was one of the first times, even though I've been to many, many performances, that I was the only white person in the room. And I sat watching this going, why? This is an American story. Where are the white people? You know, which often I'm in the other side of the story going, this is an American story. Where are the Latinos? Where is the African Americans? And now here's a room and there's no Caucasians.
Right. I mean, I think that's an interesting question. And, you know, I could get in trouble in these comments, but, you know, is there cynicism in producers? You know, as we look at, you know, I grew up in the regional theater model in Dallas, Texas, under Adrian Hall and then Richard Hamburger and these people. And those theaters, and I do it now, we think of slots, you know, as we're programming a season. And I think it sounds very cynical. We're like, oh, here's our African-American slot. Now we're going to look at this play by Jose Rivera and make it, you know. But you're right. How do we how do we get that American experience in the room? And I don't know. I mean, we've got the, you know, the Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, not Cat. We have the Streetcar now running with an all African American cast. You know, but what's that audience makeup? You know, we have Clybourne Park running, which is a fascinating discussion.
Play.
I know that I think
another Steppenwolf.
Right, another Steppenwolf. But it's trying to do that. So I don't know. I think you know that answer of, you know, we've all been chasing that diversity of audience. You know, I live in a community though that is not that diverse. You know, as I look at the numbers. So to me, I'm looking at diversity of ideas, diversity of styles, and willing to have a conversation about what it means to live today, the way we live now. I mean, I talk about that. You know, why don't you do? We have this kind of unwritten rule. We only do shows that are 5 years or younger or new plays. People are like, why don't you do the old ones? I said, well, I'm more interested in, you know, how we live now and what those are. And I don't mean it as facetious as it sounds, but to the nostalgically looking at the past. They have their place, and I'm the person that like goes, what do you want in your theater? I mean, I just with audience members all the time. Why did you do that show that was so serious or darker or, you know, had some 4-letter words in it? And I'll be like, well, what do you want out of a theater experience? And I'll like find them a theater. I think there's nothing wrong with that sort of, you know, where they're going. We have a luxury. We're a 300-seat theater. We only do 8 or 9 performances of each show, and I hope that I can find 2,000 people who like what I like. You know, so at the end of the day, much like youth programming, I program shows I want to see and be a part of. And at some point, if that diverges, then it's my time to move on to another organization. I mean, that's the risk they took in hiring me, you know.
Right. So tell me about coming to the Adirondacks. Or coming to the northern part of the capital region or whatever. What are the surprises? Good or bad?
Good or bad. I always tell the story. So my first trip here, for a while I was commuting from Chicago. My contract actually initially said you only have to be in Glens Falls 1 week a month in the off season, then full time. And then it quickly became clear that I needed to be there a lot more, and so that's what I was doing. But my first trip there, I had these people I wanted to see. I wanted to meet Rick Davidson's of Davidson Brothers Brewer, because he'd been a sponsor since the beginning, Red Fox Books, which was the independent bookstore in town. And I met with a bunch of other people, but I couldn't get to those two, just for whatever reason. So on my way out of town the last day, I went to this diner to have breakfast, and there both of those people were. I called Dave Turner and said, "I can't believe it." She goes, "Well, we're really excited you like that," because they interviewed a lot of people, and I hadn't thought this through, that had run from their small towns. And they couldn't figure out why they wanted to go back to a small town. You have to like that part of it. And again, I live not far from the theater in downtown. I walk into the Rock Hill Bakehouse and I have my cup of coffee and Beth says hello to me, and I like being known. And so I like that part of it. Whether it's being in Rotary, whether it's being, it's that smaller town. So I think I see an impact. The surprise in the last couple of years, at first you were surprised that I've been there 5 summers. It's my nature. The first 3 years was put my nose to the grindstone and not look up. Not really get out. It's only been the last couple of years that I've gotten out and discovered what else is here, having directed Superior Donors at Cap Rep, working for Mike Mills and doing the Clifford tour that's coming. So I've discovered another community, and now I'm trying to figure out how to integrate that into a model that has traditionally been cast in New York, rehearse in New York, bring the show up. And I think that's still going to be a major part of our model, but I also feel a responsibility to feeding the community that's feeding me, as it were. And finding more collaborations, whether it's working with WHAM on the and MOPCO on the 24-hour play project. I love that. And that's what I was needing as an individual, because I'd moved into Glens Falls and I was the only guy running a theater. I was the only artist.
Right.
And it gets very lonely. My general manager, who's wonderful, Tracy, is, she's been a stage manager, but she gets tired as I come out and go, "What about this play? What about this show?" And she's trying to balance the books. So finding colleagues and friends, so whether it's Maggie at Cap Rep or, Tim Duggan and these people, has been great. I think that's been the great surprise.
Huh, interesting. Do you have a sense, I've always talked about this region having the oddity, and I think unlike almost any place I can think of being a suburb surrounded by cities, rather than a city surrounded by suburbs.
Well, they're all very independent communities.
Right.
Glens Falls, and there's that kind of home team mentality, right?
Right.
So I'm like, 2 exits up from Saratoga, right? But there's this real separation. Now we're starting to see a little more mixing as Glens Falls is, renovated its main street, and Saratoga gets a little more crowded. People seem to be being a little more fluid. But you're right, we are real independent towns. But because the other thing that surprised me, I guess, in my little town, I grew up in a town of Plano, Texas, 250,000 people, and
good art scene.
Yeah, but Plano didn't have it growing up. They didn't have a theater until we didn't build a theater from the city. Well, I ran a small little one that was called the Art Center. It was 160 seats. And then the city worked with us to renovate a gym, but that wasn't until 2002, right? So a friend of mine was there, said that Plano cared about its roads more than its soul. And now I'm in Glens Falls of 14,500, and there's probably more cultural activity density. We have, the Hyde Collection, which is an amazing museum. We have the theater, we have us. We have the smallest town in America with a professional symphony. We have the Chapman Historical Society. We have a World Awareness Children's Art Museum. I mean, it's just fascinating to me to see this sort of, Metroland a few years ago called it the unexpected arts mecca. And it is neat to see a town that does care about that side and represents that soul building aspect of it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So what do you want to have happen in the next 5 years? Where would you like to see yourself, ATF, the region?
Well, I think my first job here was to stabilize and make sure I understood the market, and I'm an artistic director who doesn't believe in that that scorched earth policy that we see so often. Someone comes in, and I took over ATF because I liked ATF. I liked the mission, so I held on to the mission. So in 5 years, I'd like to see us grow with larger productions. I'd love to see us have a longer season. Right now, we do everything really intense, and I know that's, my other joke has been that. We take the best time of the year in the Adirondacks and tell you to come sit in the dark. So how do we spread it out? Because if you're seeing our main season, which is 5 events, 3 shows, a reading, and a cabaret, that happens over 6 weeks. That's at the theater almost every other night in some ways for some people. So I'm hoping we can grow that. I would also like to see us continue to foster the new play development in a larger sense. We've had lots of discussions about a winter, I call it the Playwrights Ski Lodge. Could we invite playwrights up to be like a winter version of the O'Neill? But a lot of that's finding that sort of support and getting, out of that best kept secret mentality, which, everyone likes to say we have, but it's time to let the secret out. So getting that more regional. We're lucky that 83 to 86% of my audience is year-round resident, which means I have a lot of room to grow in terms of attracting that tourist crowd that floods into Lake George every year.
Wow, that's just all terrific. Mark,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you for
Thank
being
you.
with us. Mark Fleischer, producing artistic director of ATF. Go check out their website. Fabulous season this year. One of my favorite new musicals. The Next to Normal will be on that season. Thank you for joining us here at Impact. I'm Philip Morris. Thank you, Mark Fleischer.
Thank you.
Our next segment is the government segment, and I'm the host for the government segment, Nick Barber. My guest is Cesare Menicia. Cesare is the state trustee of the Sons of Italy in America for New York State, and also a past president and officer of the Sons of Italy Lodge number 321 in Schenectady, New York. Cesare is talking to people in the community about the Italian-American consulate who is coming to Schenectady in June, and it's a unique and not frequent visit, and he wants to get the word out so people can be helped with their immigration issues, their passport renewals, and any other type of issue that you would deal with through the consulate, the Italian-American consulate. So they'll be here in June. This is very informational. Tell your friends, particularly our Italian-American citizens, about the Italian-American consulate coming to Schenectady, New York in June. Let's watch. Hi everyone, and welcome to Impact. I'm your host, Nick Barber, for the government segment. And today we have a special issue. The Italian-American consulate will be coming to town here in Schenectady in June. And our special guest is Cesare Menicia. Cesare's my dear friend, a very active citizen in this community, the past president of the Sons of Italy, Gabriele D'Annunzio Lodge number 321 in Rotterdam. And you've got quite a varied background. Welcome, Cesare.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. This is an important message that we're going to send out to the community about the Italian consulate coming here. But before we get to that, I want people to know who you are. Now, you've got quite a background. You were born in Italy, correct?
I came to the state at the age of 21.
21.
I finished my education over here, and then I started my teaching career in 1964.
You became a professor. You're a professor emeritus, and all your life you've been devoted to education, right?
Right.
Let me read a little bit to our viewers about you. He was taught in U.S. and Italy, and Cesare retired from SUNY Albany with about 30 years of service. In Italy, Cesare was the headmaster of the American International School of Turin. He wears many hats, but his passion is with soccer. You're involved in youth soccer leagues, correct?
Yes.
He's a co-founder of the Capital District Youth Soccer League and the founder of various clubs and soccer associations. He coached Chalmont Varsity Girls Soccer to 2 league championships and a Section 2 championship, was elected Coach of the Year, and received many accolades. His dedication was rewarded with an election to the Hall of Fame of Eastern New York Youth Soccer Association.
Right.
That's a nice honor.
Thank you.
Yeah. In recognition of his service to local cultural, civic, and educational organizations, this past October, Cesare was selected as the Man of the Year by the Italian-American Community Center. That's terrific. Man of the Year. You're my Man of the Year, Cesare. Currently, he's a state officer of the Order of Sons of Italy in America and the chairperson of the state scholarship. He's also the vice president of the Laziale nel Mondo of the Capital District and is involved with other non-profit organizations. Now, you're a past president of the Sons of Italy in Schenectady.
Yes.
It's in Rotterdam now, but it's Lodge 321.
You
did a lot of work there. Tell us a little bit about that lodge before we go into the
well, first, the cultural aspect of Schenectady kind of changed. The community kind of shifted. A lot of people moved to Rotterdam, a lot of Italian-American Italians. They used to live on Avenue A, Avenue B, etc., that area over there.
Yes.
Moved to Rotterdam. So we thought there was need to move from downtown.
So how long ago did the Sons of Italy Lodge move from the city of Schenectady to Rotterdam?
2007. We
07?
purchased that location that we have. We have improved it. We bought some property in the back, so we have more space. We have grown tremendously from roughly 200 people to 500 people. We just initiated the 500th person last week.
That's
so we are growing.
You hit the number 500.
500,
That's
yes.
a fantastic growth. That's double the membership since 2007.
But the way
what do you attribute that to?
Well, I think that there is a need for organizations like ours. I'm sure other ethnic groups have the need, like a Burning All and so on and so forth. We do a lot of, we have a lot of activity that try to bring the Italian-American community together. So not to make them Italian, so to speak, but to let them know the proud heritage that we have. And we do a lot of activity towards that goal.
So it's truly a cultural and fraternal organization.
Exactly, and also charitable, because we donate a lot of money to all the groups in Rotterdam, some in Schenectady. We donated to Autistic Society, Alzheimer's, anemia. And we have about a lot of scholarships too. We have about 7 or 8 scholarships locally that we award every year.
That's local high schools?
Local high school, yes.
That's great.
The Capital District use.
I'm all in favor of scholarship programs. That's great.
Well, that's the next route to go. We got to support our youth. Because
look what education did for you. You came here from Italy as a young man, 21 years old. You got a good education. You became a professor of mathematics?
Yes.
At SUNY Albany.
SUNY Albany.
That's quite an accomplishment.
Well, when I grew up, myself, part of Italian heritage, if you want to get out of poverty, our idea was that you have 2 choices. Either learn a trade to go to work, or get an education and to get a better job. So I chose the education because indirectly I went by default I went the education, because actually in Italy I was studying architecture. I wanted to be an architect. But at the time when I was over here, there was no help, no economic help. And Syracuse University, which was close to where I settled in Cortland, cost $6,000 a year, and I was making 99 cents an hour. I couldn't afford it. So by default, I said, well, there was a state college there. Might as well go to SUNY Cortland. It was local. I didn't have to pay room and board. The tuition, there was no tuition. Like when I was president of the senior class, I fought Rockefeller. They instituted the $400 tuition the first time in the fall of '64, if I remember right.
You were a protester, huh?
Well,
you fought for the issue. I'm kidding.
I fought for the issue.
Good.
I joined the civil rights movement. We did a lot of fighting, a lot of demonstration, because we wanted it social justice for everybody.
Well, that's great. So well, let's get into this issue about the topic that we were discussing today.
Well, first,
the Italian American, I keep saying Italian American, it's the Italian consulate from New York City is coming up here in June. So tell our audience, what's this about? Why are they coming here?
What happened is that because of my knowledge of Italian English, I become sort of a reference point for people that need help. I always complaining it's too far away. It's too hard for older people to get there, because this affects mostly older people. So I thought, I made a contact with the Italian consulate, and they agreed to bring a mission over here. They bring a group of people to the Sons of Italy in Hamburg, so that the people that need to renew the passport, get a new passport, have a problem with immigration or any other thing, dual citizenship, and why not? If it's our local people that are interested in doing business in Italy, they will talk about that too.
So that's great. So not just for the passports and immigration issues,
that was the
but
main.
Also commerce too and business issues.
Well, they have some business idea what they want to do, and I'm sure if there's some local company that have an idea, that might be a good chance.
So they have assistance or counseling programs.
Right.
So that's going to be at the Sons of Italy Lodge on Hamburg Street in Schenectady?
Sometime in June.
Sometime in June.
Unfortunately, the date has not been set, but they are working on it. And for me, of course, to make it worthwhile for them, we need a good show. We need a lot of people.
So we want to get people out.
If there's no need.
All our Italian-American friends in our viewing audience, and is this just people from Schenectady or anywhere from the Capital District? So all our Italian-American friends anywhere in the Capital District in June, the Italian consulate from New York City will be here to assist in all kinds of issues, but primarily to renew your citizenship, your passport rather,
Right.
your passports. The date isn't set, but there is an email address. Can they get the date from them, or how would they? When we get the date, how are we going to tell our audience?
Well,
who can they contact?
They will contact us, the Sons of Italy, but we will put them in the paper there, exactly.
It'll be in the newspaper.
But they could call the numbers that we are going to give them.
Or you could call the numbers that you'll see on our screen for more information. We're visiting with Cesare Maniccia, and Cesare's arranged to have the Italian consulate come up from New York City to the Capital District here in Schenectady to assist with passport renewals or passports and other issues.
Now, I want to make sure that they have to register. But if they have, if they use a PC email, they can contact the consulate directly, and they will send them a form where they register. If they don't, if they don't have a computer, they have numbers they can call that you said they're going to show them on.
Okay. And that email address for the consulate in New York is Passaporti, PASSPORTI .NewYork, NEWYORK at Esteri, ESTERI.IT. That's going to be up on your screen, so you can email them for more information also in New York.
And if they are unsuccessful, they can call our lodge.
Call the Sons of Italy Lodge in Schenectady. We're listed.
And that's easy to remember, 355-7500.
That's 355-7500.
Right.
Sons of Italy Lodge in Rotterdam, New York.
New York.
Well, that's great. This is a great service that you've arranged this and provided for Italian-American citizens to come and get some assistance. It's much more convenient. Big expense to go to New York City, whole day trip.
Time-consuming.
Time-consuming.
It's hard. But I want to also thank you for, for giving the chance to me to come over here and trying to publicize this, because we want to let them know that we do care about the Italian community, and the embassy, and the Italian consulate especially, cares, and they want to help out. It's never happened before. This will be the first time they're coming up over here with the missions like this.
I will be there myself. You know, I'm a member of the lodge myself, and I'm very, very proud of you and others who have worked so hard to enhance the cultural and fraternal and the social customs of Italian Americans throughout the region. So thank you for your service and for doing this.
Thank you. But I also, since you gave me the opportunity to jump in, if I was able to accomplish the little I did accomplish, I owe it to people like you, your grandparents that came before me, that fought so hard and they suffered so many things, and they were at the end of many racist and prejudice feelings in the community. Even today, I feel that there's still some, it's a different tone, but it's still, there's a lot of prejudice.
Oh, yeah. There was. I remember myself as a little boy. There was discrimination and prejudice.
Well, when I came to
amongst the different ethnic groups, not just Italians, but
when I came to Schenectady, they said don't look for a job in Escayuna because they don't hire Italian. I don't know if it was true or not, but that. Well,
sad but probably true. So our grandparents and ancestors were pioneers, and we can thank them.
Right.
We're with Cesare Maniccia, past president of Sons of Italy. And a state officer of the Sons of Italy in America. And we want to thank you very much, Cesare, for coming. It's a short interview, but I think we got the information out.
I hope so.
And good luck. I'll be there in June. And thank you very much for doing this. And good luck with...
And thank you for the services to the community that you and your association and group provided.
It's our pleasure. It's great to have you here, and I hope you come back again. Well, this is Nick Barber with Cesare Maniccia. Thanks for watching Impact, and we'll see you next time. Next is our roving reporter segment. Huldah Thompson, our roving reporter, will be interviewing Kim Belize. Kim is from the Schenectady Business and Professional Women's Club. Kim will be talking about their Life Unplugged program. This is a program that helps prepare teenagers for life, a very, very important program. So let's watch Kim with Life Unplugged.
Welcome to Impact's Roving Reporter, where we highlight special events in and around the capital region. This week we're highlighting Life Unplugged by the Schenectady Business and Professional Women's Club. My guest is Kim Belize. Kim, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much. Now, before we get into Life Unplugged, talk to me a little bit about who you are and what you do here in the capital region.
Okay. I was a teacher before I moved up to New York. I taught high school science for about 6 years. And then actually my last job was that of a volunteer coordinator for an animal shelter.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you're an animal lover also?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes, and I've always loved animals. When I went to school, I got a degree from Texas A&M University, wanted to be a veterinarian. That didn't happen, but I pursued careers that had to do with animals. And the volunteer position that I had, a coordinator, was one of the most challenging and rewarding positions I've had.
Yes, so as a teacher, as an animal lover, I will say you are a natural caregiver.
Yes, yes I am.
So talk to us about Life Unplugged and this Schenectady Business and Professional Women's Program.
Okay, I joined the Schenectady BPW about 3 years ago, and they gave me youth leadership because of my prior teaching experience. Then Life Unplugged, I got introduced to it about 2 years ago. They sent me to Lake Placid with about 3 or 4 girls from the community, and they did a little demo. And I said, this looks like a great program.
Yes.
What the program is it's focused on students between the ages of 14 and 19. It's to help with financial planning, career planning, and they are given careers with a salary, and they go through a series of 15 booths that are manned by volunteers that have some kind of a background with that booth. And they have their monthly balance that they have in their book after taxes are taken out, and they have to go and purchase a home, a vehicle, insurance, gas, electric. So they get to see a glimpse of what it would be like at 24 years old, their first career.
Exactly. Now, I love this program because it promotes education.
Yes, it does. We're trying to promote continuing education for students.
Yes.
A lot of these students get wrapped up in a job. They don't go on to continue their education, and the job may seem as though it pays a lot, you know, when they're 18 years old.
That is true. That is true.
But they have no idea where that's going to bring them financially, you know, in the years to come.
And that's the second thing that I love about the program is the concept of understanding money.
Yes.
Because I must tell you, when I got into college, I got my textbook, bought it, and then opened the textbook, and there were applications for credit cards.
Oh yeah.
And so, not having any background and understanding the concept of money, I just signed up for credit cards, like many of my contemporaries did.
Absolutely.
And when we finished college and we got into the real world, we were already in debt because we did not understand the concept of money.
It's not free money.
Exactly, it's not free money, you know. And so what I loved about this program was that these young high school kids got an opportunity to see themselves 20 years in the future, to understand the concept of how money is important and how money ties into education. Because the better education you have, it leads to better income, it leads to a better lifestyle, and they got to see it firsthand, you know, in the career that they had.
I was a nurse, LPN.
All right, were you married or single?
I had an employed spouse, thank goodness.
And how many kids did you have?
I had 4.
What was the most surprising thing of the whole experience for you?
Definitely how much children cost. I mean, I knew they were expensive, but this was like crazy off the charts. I mean, childcare alone was like put me in debt by like a good $1,000. Food, by that time I had just left the child care station, so when I got the food I was like, I'm already in a hole, and I'm thinking, oh, hopefully this won't be so much. It was like $662 because I had such a large family, and that was like low income food, so it was still really rough.
So when you go to the grocery store with your mom, how are you going to feel now?
Oh my, definitely not asking for anything. I'll be like, you have coupons, you can cut some corners here. Like,
so that was truly a reality check for you to see the childcare and the food costs.
Huge reality check, huge.
Are you planning to go to college?
Most definitely. I want to become either a sports psychologist or neuropsychologist. So.
Okay, so something in the medical field.
Most definitely,
Definitely. And so you understand the value of $1 these days?
Oh my gosh, now I do. Like before I was like, whatever, like I kind of like went through money like water, and now I'm just like, I want the $1 back.
talk to us about the students that participated.
The students that participated, whether it be a high school, or we actually reached out to a lot of different organizations that had to do with students, so they could have learned about it.
Okay.
But I'll list, there's a nice list of students. It's the capital area was included, not just Schenectady, which we had first intended to.
Yes, yes.
There were students from Bishop Gibbons, the Schenectady High School, Albany Academy for Girls, Niskayuna High School, Boys and Girls Program, Smart Scholar Program, and Washington Irving High School.
So it encapsulated the entire capital region. And not only because, again, I was, when I saw the thing, I thought it was only for girls.
Yes.
Because in my mind, it is the female most of the time who's handling the checkbook, who's doing the grocery shopping, the clothes shopping, and most of the time paying the bills.
Right.
And so I thought this is for girls. And then I realized that boys were allowed to come in and be a part of this too.
It's a kind of interesting experience here today. Actually, the cost of some things was kind of surprising. Like with the clothes, I didn't think it would cost that much, but it was like $600 something what I got. And I was just given I had a spouse and only one child, and it still cost $670 something.
Talk to us about the importance of boys being a part of this program.
Well, it was kind of a little bit of a mistake that we didn't put on the application that it was just for girls.
Yes.
And so boys did sign up, and we're like, why not?
Exactly.
I mean, they need to learn, the impact of the choices they make. What's going to happen.
Exactly.
And it was very interesting because we had a couple there, your boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yes.
And at the end, they had a comment.
Yes,
about
he
it.
said, I think that one of the counselors said, he said, we can't afford to have kids.
They can't afford to have kids.
We cannot afford to have kids,
Right,
even
childcare.
though, exactly, because two of the biggest items that takes up a lot, or three, I would say, insurance, childcare, and housing.
Yes.
It was a good experience. It was stressful at first because we had all these expenses, and like you think you start out with a lot of money, but like it goes away really quickly. And the most expensive thing, I didn't know children cost as much as they did.
How many kids did you have?
I had 2, and my child care was like $918. So I didn't know they cost so much. So now it's like I know what my parents go through.
3 big items that these kids have little concept of, and now here they were in a reality that they have to face the fact that, okay, by the time I got to this boot, that boot, and the other boot, I had no money left for entertainment or for even the little simple things that I wanted.
Absolutely.
There was nothing left.
No, there is nothing left, and it was very interesting. I said it's sort of like, our own form of birth control.
Yes, yes.
Because they did make the comment they were going to wait to have children.
Yes.
And they didn't take it so lightly, and there are a lot of, young students out there that do get married and have children early on. Now they see what kind of bills they're going to incur.
Exactly.
And a lot of the careers that the kids were given, we try to coordinate with things that interest them. So if they didn't make a lot of money, they couldn't afford a lot of money, they have to go back and rethink, what type of careers they're going to choose.
So some of the people we had financial people there. Bankers. We had, so what are some of the other companies that came?
We had just the bankers, financial people, real estate agents, insurance agents, medical assistants, transportation, travel and leisure. I'm trying to even think of something. Food.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so they have a booth with food, and I'm trying to think of even some of the other ones. But it was all the bills that you would pay on a regular basis were represented through the 15 booths that were there.
Now, one of my favorite comments that I got from one of the students was on food. Yes. She said she finally realized the importance of her mom using coupons. And the fact that, when she says, oh, I want this, I want that, she did not understand how much she didn't understand the concept of budgeting, couponing. And she said, I took those things for granted, but now when I go out shopping with my mom, it's going to change my perspective of shopping with her.
Yes.
And I think that is such a great help for any young person to understand.
It is.
That because we are so accustomed of getting, I want this, I want this, I want this new phone. Why can't you give me this new phone? Everybody else have this new phone. And if for them to understand and to get a glimpse into life as an adult and the stress, the hard choices a parent has to make to say, no, it's not like I don't want to give you, but I can't afford it. That's a reality.
I have 2 favorite comments from the students that really bring that home. It's one of them said, "This program taught me to appreciate my mother and how much things cost." Another one, I didn't realize how many things people have to consider. All of these different, you think about the big things. Okay, we know you have a car and a house, but some of the, like we talked about, the insurance and how expensive health care.
Yes, I believe that when you are in the 12th grade, your brain is ready to understand grown-up things.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of young people, sometimes they don't go to college, they end up, getting pregnant, and it becomes a very bad, cycle for them. And they can't seem to get themselves out of there. But if you understand now what you may get yourself into, it changes the perspective, and it enables you to maybe achieve higher in education and go even farther. And I think this is such a wonderful program that the Schenectady Business and Professional Women did, and I commend you guys for doing it.
Thank you very much.
Because I didn't have it when I was growing up, and I'm so glad that these young women from the Capital Region and young men were able to, and I'm assuming that you guys are doing this next year.
Yes, this was our first year, our test pilot, and it was very well accepted.
Yes.
There are people at the middle school level that want us to do it. There are people, women in transition.
Yes.
So a lot of people have reached out to us. The volunteers loved it and want to come back and volunteer again, and that's really important. We had great sponsors who are willing to sponsor and then give even more next year because now they get the concept.
Exactly.
The community has been wonderful. So yes, we will be doing this again, I'm sure, every year.
Okay. Now, what are some of the other things that the club does?
Our fashion show, annual fashion show, which is huge. It generates a lot of money, and I don't know if anyone's aware, but our purpose is to take the money that is produced from the fashion show and other events and turn it into scholarships for the youths of Schenectady and women returning to work, or even starting for the first time that didn't have a chance to do it before.
I think that is wonderful. Women giving back to women is always a big thing for me.
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, before we go, just mention how can people get more information on the club?
We have a great website. It's SchenectadyBPW.org, and you can get all the information on upcoming events. You're more than welcome to come to any of our meetings, which are held the last Tuesday of every month at the Stockade Inn, a wonderful dinner. The food's always a motivator for me.
Yes.
And it's just a great group of women that support one another and the community.
Okay. Now, membership is, how do we become a member if you want to be a member?
You can come to one of these dinners, or you can just email, and the application's actually right on the website.
Good.
So you can fill out the application, but if you'd like to come and see what we are all about first, you may do so and come to one of our dinners.
Okay. Kim, it's been a pleasure having you here on Roving Reporter segment of Impact. Please feel free to come back again.
Absolutely.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've been watching the Roving Reporter segment here on Impact Show. I'm Huldah Thompson. See you next time.
Next is our life segment. Greg Adella is our host. Greg will be interviewing Leslie LeDuc. Leslie is the Public Affairs Coordinator for the famous Yaddo Complex in Saratoga Springs, New York. Leslie will be talking about the exclusive Yaddo retreat, its history, and what's new at Yaddo. Let's watch.
Welcome back to another segment of Impact on Life. I'm your host, Greg Adella. Joining me today is a woman that works at one of my favorite places in the entire world, and it's located right here in the Capital District. I'm talking about the exclusive artist retreat, Yaddo, in Saratoga Springs. Please help me welcome Public Affairs Coordinator for Yaddo, Leslie LeDuc. Hi, Leslie, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Thanks so much for coming down and spending a few minutes with me. I'll just tell the audience quickly. Last summer we met, because I was on a different project, and you were gracious enough to have my film crew come in and open up the doors of Yaddo and see a different perspective, and let my father come with me, which was great, but just see a different perspective and just tell the audience more about Yaddo, brief history, and just the elegance of it all.
Well, thank you. Yaddo is an artist retreat. We have approximately 220 artists per year come to Yaddo to work, but it was founded by a couple named Spencer and Katrina Trask. It was their home at one time, and their plan for Yaddo was to turn it over to artists as a place to create. And the one thing that makes Yaddo different from other artist retreats is we don't emphasize a product, we emphasize the creative process.
Right.
So we don't ask to see what people do while they're there. Many of them share it with us, but we just assume that once they get there, they'll do what they're supposed to do.
That's one of the most fascinating things about Yaddo is that separateness where it's so conducive to the creative sense. And you get that, you know, I've been around the arts now for 11 years, perched headlong. And when you walk in there, it's just so, it has a supportive feeling, but it drops you back to really getting in touch with who you are and what you're supposed to be creating.
Well, it's one of the things that originally drew the Trask family to that particular piece of property.
Now that's late 1890s. Let's tell the people. We're talking, right?
Well, actually, the early 1880s.
Early 1880s, they were there, and then Yaddo now is like,
right.
Okay,
Yaddo opened as an artist retreat in 1926 after both of the Trasks had passed away. But when they originally settled on that piece of property, it wasn't because the house was beautiful. And I should mention that the house that's there now is not the house they originally lived in there. But it wasn't the house, it was that piece of property. Katrina Trask was a poet and a playwright, and it was just something about that piece of property that she felt something about, and she hoped that others would too. And it turns out that over the years the family was there, her poet friends and her actor and actress friends from the theater found that same sort of inspiration at Yaddo.
And let's talk about, speaking about people that have stayed there, I mean, let's tell some of the people who are some artists that have been there. I mean, you got Mario Puzo, Robert De Niro Sr. Right? Yes. You've got Cheever. Cheever was mischievous up there, wasn't he? He was like the Woody Woodpecker, the annoying guy up there. I love his stories. I've read about Cheever and his stories up at Yaddo, and I approached you last summer with some of the stuff, and some have been, you know, elaborated upon. But
well, I think he did a pretty good job of telling the stories himself. He was at Yaddo many, many times. Probably, I would guess, at least 15 or 20 times over the years. Wow. That doesn't happen for everybody that comes to Yaddo, but especially in the early days of Yaddo, there was really an attempt to help artists of all kinds, and not just writers, but artists that working in all genres that really needed that assistance and needed the time and the space. And although there is a story that I'm pretty sure is true, that the first time he applied, our then director, Elizabeth Ames, wrote back and told him to learn how to spell and reapply later.
That's great. And you know what you touched on, what I found very intriguing, because you have to walk and you're outdoors, and it's the Adirondacks, and it's beautiful and it's serene. But as you go actually to the painters' rooms out in the fields, and I remember seeing the one tour, they had cut up wood and they can fuel their own fire out there. And what it's just the amazing global unity of all walks of art life is happening there, and it's a real treasure, you know, that it's there.
It is one of the things that the artists who come to Yaddo talk about the most, because it happens in real life for them, at least, that if you're a writer, most of your friends tend to be fellow writers. Same thing with a visual artist or a composer. So the day works at Yaddo that everybody has the entire day to work in their studios, but breakfast and dinner are taken together in the dining room in the mansion. And that brings up some interesting conversations that sometimes it's just interesting to sit and listen to a person working in a different genre talk about their work or how they approach their work. Or sometimes it actually leads to collaborations later on, lifelong friendships.
Yes. No, absolutely, and you know, something you touched on that I love. I love this story, and we talked about it last summer as well with the dining, because there are quote unquote laws and rules of Yaddo when you're there that you abide by, and you eat together. I believe it's breakfast. Is it lunch and dinner, or just breakfast and dinner now?
Just breakfast and dinner.
Breakfast
lunch is packed in a lunch pail.
Okay, that's great, a little lunch box. And in the kitchen, right, in that living room area, there are two tables, and to the left is when. Is to the left when people want to talk and be to them, or is it be to themselves? And the right table?
It depends on what side of the room you're coming.
Oh, gotcha. So, but here's the point. There's two tables, and it's a great story. So if you wake up, you're staying there, and you don't want to be bothered. You don't want to be bothered. You can sit at one table, and everyone knows if you're sitting there. Anyone who sits there doesn't want to talk. But if you sit at this one, you talk away. And it would be great.
We call it the silent table.
The silent table.
Now,
and couples would love to have that table at home. Yeah, sit over there, honey, you're bothering me, and that's enough.
I can't remember if the sign was up when you were there, but there is actually a sign on that
table.
Okay. It actually sits a little off to the side of the dining room. It's kind of in a little window area.
I see. Now, you have, before we get into your upcoming events, the thing about Yaddo that's beautiful is not just the inside. It is the grounds and the public gardens, which I suggest you go and see this summer when they're in bloom. And tell more people about
The gardens are, it's about 10 acres of our estate, and the entire Yaddo estate is about 400 acres. But it was the wish of our founders that the gardens always remain open to the public. And we have this wonderful group of volunteers, the Yaddo Garden Association, which are primarily responsible for much of the upkeep of the gardens. It has a formal rose garden and then an informal rock garden. And if people have been to the gardens in recent years, you might have noticed that the rock garden fountain, which is man-made geyser, it's beautiful, but it hadn't been working. There were some problems with it, and many thanks to our friends at the Adirondack Trust Company.
Oh, very nice.
A substantial gift. The fountain is now repaired, and sometime within the next 2 weeks, usually the last week in April or the first week in May, the fountain water will be turned on in all the fountains at Yaddo.
Very nice. So you're talking about the big one at the foot of the hill?
No, it's actually behind the big pergola. It looks
like
it literally looks like a geyser.
The geyser, yeah. You know, I've noticed in the past couple summers it hasn't, right?
No, it's fixed.
That is
It's
fantastic.
working.
That's nice because it always has a nice mist.
Yes.
Oh, very nice. All right, so what does Yaddo have coming up, you know, this spring and summer with events?
Well, we're very excited to announce that our benefit this year in Saratoga Springs will be on June 19th. And we get to mix a couple of genres this year. Our benefit always features artists who have been guests at Yaddo in some way or another. This year we have a gentleman by the name of Will Hermes. He's a writer. He's a senior editor for Rolling Stone magazine, and he just published this book. It's called Love Goes to Buildings on Fire. Sorry, this is a little tough one. Love Goes to Buildings on Fire.
Okay.
5 years in New York City that changed the music forever.
Nice.
And we're going to have him talking about his book, but how we're going to work it is sort of like you and I are doing right now. It's going to be an interview with a Yaddo composer named Nathan Barr. You might not know Nathan Barr's name, but I'm sure you know his music. He's written music for a lot of films, and he wrote the theme song and writes most of the music that's featured on the HBO show True Blood.
Ah, that's fantastic. And this is going to be open to the public?
It is open to the public. There is a charge. You can check our website out for that.
Yeah, that's yaddo.org.
Yes.
Yes, yaddo.org. That's fantastic. What else you got coming up? Come on.
Well, we're not ready to talk about it in detail yet, but you will be hearing a lot about Yaddo, I think, over the next 5 years. This year, we are in the process of creating a master plan for our facilities and buildings. We're sort of at the tipping point right now as far as we have 17 buildings on the estate.
Wow.
Some of them, and most all of them, date back to the turn of the century. So we're getting ready to actually tear down 2 buildings.
Is that right?
Replace them.
Wow, very nice.
One is further along in the process. It is a building, it's a smaller building, it has 2 studios in it, and we are going to be tearing that down at the end of August. And then hopefully within 18 months, a new building will replace it.
Nice.
And we're very excited about it because this new building will have 2 studios in it, but one of them will be specifically made to accommodate a composer, not a composer, a choreographer, or somebody who works in performance art. It will have a springboard floor. We've never had anything about that like that at Yaddo, and one of the things we're trying to look at right now is what can we do to meet the needs of artists today. Contemporary artists have different needs. So many of the genres kind of mix together now. So these studios will be a little bit bigger in size than some of the ones we have.
You know, that's really good to hear because I can speak, you know, a lot of dealings and friends. I've made great friends over the 11 years across the country, and I think we're all at a point we talk about change and growth and what goes on in the art world, and it's great to hear that, you know, Yaddo is that far looking into it and trying to understand and grow with the global art world. So I mean that's really super good. That's good. It's progressive and
I think
it helps.
One of the interesting things to me is that I've been at Yaddo for several years now, but not centuries.
No.
In the time I have been there, even the admissions process has changed. When I first came to Yaddo,
and explain that quickly, because when you came, let's start right where you came from. You're from Oregon,
right?
Right. You're from Pacific Northwest. You come to the Adirondacks. It's similar in look, but this is what I like about my guests that aren't from the area. They get this different insight, and I think it's healthy.
So I do too.
Yeah.
And when I first came to Yaddo, we had 3 judging panels. We had literature, musical composition, and visual arts. And then we recognized that that doesn't really encompass all the artists who come to Yaddo, and we sort of morphed some of those committees off, and now we have 5 admissions panels.
Wow.
We've included film as a separate panel and performance art as a separate panel.
Nice.
We, in case people are interested, we do get approximately 12 to 1,400 applications per year, and about 20% of those
Get
are
accepted
approved for
and approved.
admission.
Wow, that's great.
So-
And now the gardens are open. They're open year round. What are the times that people can visit the gardens?
The gardens are open dawn to dusk,
Dawn to
daily.
dusk, daily.
If
Oh.
you want to come out when it's snowing, that's fine with us.
Yeah, and I've seen it. I've seen it in all seasons, Yaddo, and it's worth your time, and it's a treasure, and it's a beautiful, beautiful establishment. And to learn more about Yaddo and their facilities and their hours in the gardens, go to yaddo.org. I want to thank my guest, Leslie Leduc, for coming in. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
It's always fun.
Oh, it is always fun. You're a good spirit, and I wish you guys all the best of luck, and hats off to a great place.
Great, thanks.
So again, for another episode of Impact on Life, I'm your host, Greg Adela. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Well, that's it for this week for Impact. Thanks for watching. I'm Nick Barber, your host. And remember, contact us by email, impact@proctors.org. That's impact@proctors.org. Or send your comments or suggestions to us on Facebook. Go to Impact Show and like us on Facebook. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Proctors, bringing the best in arts, education, and entertainment.